We are live talking about the weather.
That's right. As
the,
usual.
the weather and racing and
Yeah.
baseball. Chris
Mhm.
might not be able to make it here tonight because he's at a baseball game. He doesn't know what time he's getting back. To which I said, actually, I didn't. My sister said, baseball in February? Like, I wonder what kind of game he must be played indoors in a dome. Because,
In indoor baseball, how does that work?
well, they have,
Oh,
Astrodome, stuff like that. They got domes in
okay.
MLB. But
Okay.
I don't know
That
that
is,
non-NLB,
yeah,
MLB have
right.
domes.
That's not what I consider indoors. I mean, if it's the
Okay.
size of a basketball court, that's indoor.
All right. Just putting a roof on a stadium isn't indoors.
Right.
There's not a ton of them. Good evening, Tit Goblin. And you know who we didn't mention last week who died? Jim
Ooh,
Silkey. Do you know who he is?
I don't think so.
He was 93. I know him mostly from covers.
Right.
Um, he always did sort of as Slike, I think it is Silke, Jim Silkey. He did a lot of sort of good girl cheesecake covers over the years. Um, and I haven't seen. He's one of those guys who used to pop up on the edges of comics all the time. I think he was like a painter or something like that who dabbled in comics. But he was, and he did some interiors too over the years, but not a lot. But yeah, he died last week at 93. I was like, did you find him?
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the cheesecake.
Yeah,
Vampirella. There's Vampirella. There's some sort of a barbarian girl. Betty Page.
yeah, okay. I think he was a friend. Dave Stevens befriended him back in the 80s, if memory serves.
Some parody of Strangers in Paradise called Rascals in Paradise. This seems to be an actual comic that he put out.
Okay. Yeah, but he died last week, I saw. I think it said he was 93. He was not a young man.
Right.
That's quite old. Yeah, I remember, like I said, he just one of these guys on the edges of comics. I always saw my whole I'd usually see a cover from him here or there, like on indie books and things, cheesecake type indie books.
Yeah, this is pretty good. Oh, Xena Warrior
Yeah, his
Princess
stuff's
2.
nice.
Yeah.
I always kind of liked it. Never hunted down a lot of it or something, but I certainly remember him and his name and his work.
All right. And there's a video here by somebody named
Greetings, Sleepy Reader.
v- VM VM Campos. He did a video on Jim Silkey.
Okay. Does Tit Goblin or Sleepy Reader remember Jim Silkey? He died last week. Sort of a good girl cheesecake artist. Died at 93.
I guess Damien should know.
Yeah, I wanted to mention him last week, but just completely slipped my mind as we were talking about whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Comic Crack knows him because
Right.
knows his work.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Because
when
he
he
knows
shows
a
up,
lot
we'll
of that
ask it.
stuff.
When...
Who?
Damien.
Jim Silkey, Jisilke. He did a lot of sort of cheesecake work. And he's been around for a lot. He died at 93, but I think he got into comics late. I think it said he was like a painter or something. And I remember he was like friends with Dave Stevens, and he was like a mentor to Dave Stevens or maybe Dave Stevens was his mentor. I don't know, in the 80s. And I used to see covers pop up by him. Did some Vampirella covers and this and that.
Right. He has a small biography on lambic.net. So There is born May 19th, 1931, died February 6th, 2025. Okay, so after an extensive career as an art director, magazine editor, and publisher,
Ah,
photographer, historian, and screenwriter, Jim Silke finally returned to his first love, writing and drawing comics. His debut was in 1993 with Dark Horse Comics' release of Rascals in Paradise. He is also
1993. I thought I remember him from the 80s. So it must be it was a long time. Who knows? Yeah, Sleepy said I remember him from the 80s indies, I think. Yeah, I definitely remember from indies.
He's
So I
also
guess
the
it was
creator
90s
of
indies.
the erotic Betty Page series, based on the famous pin-up model from the 1950s.
Right.
All right. So
I,
Rascals in
I
Paradise
had the
predates
same
Strangers in
memory, Sleepy.
Paradise.
For
So
some reason, I
Rascals in
remember it. What was that?
so Rascals in Paradise predates Strangers in Paradise.
Oh, okay.
I thought with a name like that, and given the material, it would be
Right. You would
a
think it
parody.
could
But
be.
yeah, but no.
A tit goblin says my grandfather liked him. He had cutouts of his work in his morgue files. He liked his paintings. Pop liked all the cheesecake artists. Okay. The old morgue files we had before the digital age. Tear sheets that you put into a file cabinet or into binders. I put them into. Now we've got image searches.
And we can find anything. And if we need to find something weird, we'll just punch it up into the AI, and it will spit it out.
Yep.
Like a lobster dressed in baseball outfit. That's something that people don't remember. So or don't even think of. So you have to put it into an AI to create.
I don't know. It might make Officer Clawsome.
Might. Or his cousin who never made Major League Baseball. No, I'm gonna actually try that on one of the Stable Diffusions.
Tit Goblin says Pop's filing cabinet was an old general store cigar showcase humidor. You use what you got.
Okay, lobster dressed as Dodgers baseball player.
Sleepy Reader says, is that the same guy who made novels from Frazetta's Death Dealer? I don't know. I've not heard of that. As far as Jim Silke, as far as I know, he wasn't a novelist. But I don't know of any. I did just give away my this past week my Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer series and the Frank Frazetta Mothman series. I gave away to some students. I was like, you know what? I'm never going to read these again. I may as well pass those on. So they got passed on. I kept I think the Frank Frazetta, there was like 2 or 3 issues of an anthology I kept just because I liked a couple of it. It was only 2 issues.
Okay, I'm not going to show these lobsters wearing a Dodgers uniform because this looks like body horror.
Greetings, Infinity. Sleepy says, oh, I looked under James, not Jim. Must be 2 different guys. Well, that's right. I didn't give away. I gave away the Frazetta's Death Dealer 2 weeks ago. This week I gave away the Jeff Johns stuff. I gave away Geiger and Nocterra. Those were the 2 I gave away this week. I was like, never going to read these again. I enjoyed them when they came out. Then you know,
they look to be the same guy.
Jim Silke and James Silke are the same guy, you think?
He's listed as James R. Silke on IMDb. Apparently, he wrote Ninja 3: The Domination and Revenge of the Ninja.
Okay.
I've seen Revenge of the Ninja. Oh, the Barbarians.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Oh my God! This is the one with the Barbarian brothers. This is terrible.
What was that? Jim Silke was one of the Barbarian brothers?
No. He wrote the script to the Barbarians, Barbarians, the movie starring the Barbarian brothers.
When did they come out?
87.
87.
in the script to Revenge of the Ninja, with Sho Kosugi.
So he had a career as an art director and publisher, and then went
Mhm.
into script writing and then comic book illustration. Wow.
Mhm.
He did a lot of stuff after his retirement. So maybe does it have him listed as the writer of the novels from Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer?
They do show up here, so given they're 89 and 90, looks to be in the timeline. So
Okay. So
yeah,
maybe
because
Sleepy is right. James and
yeah,
Jim Silky are the same guy.
yeah, because I noticed they have the same birth date and death date, so it
So
was the same guy.
what are the odds of
What?
them being two different people? Very, very slim. That's interesting.
Revenge of the Ninja. And
So yeah,
there
Sleepy. He
were
was
a
the
bunch of
guy who wrote the
ninja.
novelizations of Death
Yeah,
Dealers.
but there were a bunch of ninja movies in the 80s, and they were all
Yeah.
bad.
My
Teenage Mutant.
favorite bad ninja movie is still Jim Cotta. You ever
No,
seen that one?
no, not that one.
It's with Kurt Thomas, the Olympic gymnast. And so they invented this. Jim Cotta was the name of this martial art form he did, which was based on gymnastics. So they had him like go, to Eastern Europe or something to fight in this tournament or something. And there happened, like in this tournament in like this deserted village, there happened to be like pommel horses, things disguised as pommel horses, so he could, because that was his main event in the Olympics, so he could use a pommel horse to spin on and kick guys' asses. Jim Cotta, look that one up someday.
Yeah. There's an actor in the movie, real name Conan Lee. But but it's kind of, I think it's a coincidence that it's Conan. Wait, no, it's not a coincidence. Conan Lee, born he's from Hong Kong. Conan Lee, born Lloyd Hutchinson. That's what it says. What it says in his Wikipedia.
So he picked the name Conan Lee. Sleepy says, very cool career for Jim Silky. Titcom says, 7 Lucky Ninja Kids is hands down my favorite ninja movie. I don't know that one.
Or Three Ninjas Kick Back. There's one of the which is the Three Ninjas movie with Paul Giamatti. Paul Giamatti is the bad guy in one of the Three Ninjas movies. Three Ninjas is the one with the little kids where they kick the crap out of everyone, even though the oldest is like 12.
Okay,
but Jim Cotta is based on a novel from 1957.
What?
Yeah.
I thought for sure they picked that because Kurt Thomas was the gold medal hero of the moment.
Well, they probably did, but I don't know. Maybe somebody had the greatest idea to get the rights to the novel and get a gymnast to play the character.
It was one of those movies that what year did it come out? In the 80s, I think.
Yeah, 85.
And it was big on HBO. So everybody saw it and goofed on it on HBO. So it was one of those movies for a few years that like everybody my age knew because of it running on HBO. Then it's kind of disappeared from, the public consciousness since then. Even when you mention bad movies, nobody remembers that one. But it is particularly bad, but in a good way. It was entertainingly bad. It was, a martial arts movie where the guy used gymnastics as his martial art. Okay. That's what made it stand out, of course.
Yeah. For some reason, the American ninja movies were really hot here.
Yeah.
Not in the cinema.
Right.
In video rentals.
Sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes, like I said, video rentals could make movies hot back in the day. Them running on HBO would make them hot too, because a lot of people would miss them in the theater. Like a couple of movies that became big on HBO, Eddie and the Cruisers. wasn't really big till it hit HBO. And another one is A Christmas Story, which is now like a Christmas staple movie. It didn't do. I mean, it didn't do terrible at the box office, but nobody thought it was a Christmas classic or anything. Then it hit HBO, and everybody saw it. I have to show you a piece of art that I got this week. If you remember, like 3 weeks ago, I mentioned I bought a little piece of art from Tess Fowler, who did the Rat Queens. That was one of the comics she drew. So I saw on Blue Sky, she has a store where she was selling little pieces of art. So I ended up buying this one. Hey, nice. Hey Heart. The name of it appears to be Hey Heart. Number 18. So this fun, I think I paid with shipping and tax. It was $30. Enjoy it, just nice. She does a lot of her stuff is like characters. I just saw someone bought a I don't know, a Captain Picard or something. But I just got one of her random women drawings with underboob. So that came. It was one of those cases of due to some sort of PayPal snafu, I couldn't track it. So I was just like, oh well, it'll show up when it shows up, and it took like a week to get here. I just kind of forgot about it. Then it showed up, and I was like, oh, what's this in the mail? And I opened it up. I was like, oh yeah, Tess Fowler, very cool. So I got that. I think my camera has a fingerprint on it. Let's try taking some microfiber cloth to it. There we go. I think that's better. My Tess Fowler wasn't showing up as bright. Yeah, we'll do this again, see if it shows up better. Yeah, I think that little film over it went away. Occasionally, I like to buy some artwork, so that was a piece. Do you buy artwork every now and then? Any comic book artwork or anything?
No. I got some sketches.
Okay.
But I don't even know where I put them.
That's the key, being able to see them.
No, but they were free. I didn't pay for them.
Okay. Free sketches.
Yeah, well, some of them were sort of a prize,
Yeah.
When we have the monthly comics dinner party, and since there's usually a guest of honor, and if it's an artist, every once in a while they come in with a sketch, and we buy a raffle and we can win the sketch.
Oh, cool! That is cool. I got 9 comics this week. Pretty big week for me.
Right.
8 on my pull list and 1 I pulled off the shelf. And I also read a little more back issue from June 2009, issue number 34. And in this one, and the articles I read this week. Oh, look, I'm on a Bob Wyacek article.
Huh.
It's like, I didn't remember that being in there. I'll have to show it to him. There was, we talked about the new universe last week. Probably the worst article ever on the behind the scenes of Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's an interview with Michael Urey interviews Dick Giordano. And who else is in here? Pat Bastien.
Who's that?
She was one of the editors on Crisis.
She was?
I don't remember her name either. And it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages. And when I say pages, I'm being generous because that's the only bit of text on this page over here. This it's probably a couple thousand words at best, and they spend a lot of time saying they don't remember anything.
Yeah, but it's the old trick. Okay, how much? We don't have enough copy for 4 pages. Well, just fill it up with pictures. We do that a lot in cars, so we're familiar with the.
Were there editors used to doing things their own way who resisted across-the-board coordination? Of course there were. An editor who didn't believe he knew what was best for his character and his charge couldn't have been a very good editor. But no names, no stories, no examples.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you get them to play ball? I'm happy to relate that at a mass out-of-office meeting attended by all in-house editors, Paul Levin, a lively exchange gave us it's just like all such like nothing. Oh, one of the pages doesn't even have any type on it. And then, Pat Bastian, as you know, it was my job to keep it coordinated and keep each section on time. The first inker, unnamed here, was holding down 2 jobs and running into trouble. So it was decided basically by me that I'd fly out to Milwaukee and ask Jerry Ordway to take up the gauntlet, inking the rest of the series. Not an easy commitment. And of course, the unnamed inker was Dick Giordano, who was in the interview. It was just like, huh? Well, Giordano, would like to think that the jury is still out on whether I could have finished on time. But you were almost always right, Patty, and you did save me a bunch of all-nighters. I thought wrongly, I suppose, that I was Superman in those days. But it's like, there's hardly any insight in this little tiny article.
Well, Giordano had a 30-year career by that point.
Yeah. And I think he was an old-school jobber.
Yeah. You
so
kind of notice it because he was inking Paris, and he does a good job on the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, he inked Paris on Justice League, and that's not very good.
No, I don't remember it at all. But
he's
one of these
my recollection
guys...
from the Marvel days was that Pablo Marcos was his best inker.
Okay, Romeo Tangal, I think, inked him on a lot of the Titans too, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, inking Perez must be crazy hard, says Sleepy. Yeah. It's not easy. There's a lot to ink. Bob Wyatt inked him really nicely on some of those Brave and Bolds before he couldn't keep up, and Scott Koblish took over and inked him pretty well, too. That's the series from, the Brave and Bold from 10, 12 years ago. There's some really nice Perez artwork in there. Yeah, but I really learned almost nothing from this little crisis article. So, some of these old school jobber comic book guys they don't care about. All they cared about was getting the job done. They didn't care about office gossip. They didn't care about behind the scenes. They were paying no attention.
Right.
They can offer no insight.
Right, because that's how they did it in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Show up, get the assignment, get the job done, deliver it, get the check.
Yeah. And he was a Charlton editor, so that's really a get the job done thing. Sleepy says Pablo Marco had a heavy hand on Perez.
Yeah, he did. Of course, he was a lot. The first issues of the Avengers were inked by Vince Colletta. Yeah, but because Perez had that thing where he did some glasswork thingy as a background in some panels instead of having an actual location. And Colletta did ink those, but I guess he didn't like it. And then Marcos takes over from him in the Avengers.
Did Sinnott ink some of that Marvel Perez? I don't remember.
Yeah, Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four he inked them on? Well, to continue our Perez talk, the last article in this I read was on Logan's Run. which talk about a heavy-handed inker. He had Klaus Janson on him then.
Ooh.
And I think this was, it wasn't bad though. I kind of liked it.
Right. It's not typical Jensen.
No.
No, it's recognizable as Jensen, but it's not what he usually did. There are no blotches and sprinkles.
Right, because there's not huge areas of black. But he still does a lot of things with texture. There's a Jansen Perez page with a lot of texture in it. Hold on. You can see that one doesn't particularly look a lot like Perez.
Right. No, it looks more like Tom Sutton.
Yeah. Who did the book later?
Well, the book didn't live long past the movie adaptation.
No, and they explained that. Well, first of all, they said that it got a pretty long movie adaptation.
Yeah, 5 issues.
5 issues. They were talking about that, which gave him. Though I think whoever was, I forget who was it Perez? Somebody was saying the last issue still seemed a little packed with stuff to them, and they were only working from the initial script.
Oh,
I think they said that the movie came out when issue 2 came out. So that there was some stuff, like, there's some stuff, of course, from the early script that gets cut from the final cut. So there was some stuff that was in the comic that wasn't in the movie. And talk about strangeness. Who was the writer?
David Kraft, I think.
Was it David Kraft? He did the first issue was written by someone else.
Okay.
And then, what does it say? And then David Kraft was hanging out at Marvel complaining about how many plot holes there were in the movie.
Yeah.
So that whoever was the editor decided to hire him. He was like, I don't know if he did it to punish me or what, but let me see. Where was that? It was right here.
Because the movie drifts away from the novel.
Right.
Of course,
I think Jerry Conway wrote the first issue. Oh, Kraft remembers the ironic circumstances surrounding the assignment. I think it amused Jim Shooter to offer me the job because I've been standing around the bullpen, he recalls, carrying on at great length about how much I thought the Logan's Run movie stank. It was wrong in so many ways. It was an example of how not to do science fiction and so on. I made my displeasure quite well known. Normally, I would be saying, I'm not going near that. But George Perez's first color series was Man Wolf and Creatures on the Loose that I wrote. I always liked working with him. This was a chance to work together. Plus, Klaus Janson was inking the book, and the two of them together are just great. So I decided I would solve this by taking the job and fixing some of the plot holes and character problems. Indeed, I actually did that, and there are some things in the movie that I thought were just egregious errors. And when I wrote the comic, I fixed them as I went along. We got the job by complaining about the movie, he thinks. Let's see. Sleepy says, when Perez left Logan's Run, the storytelling suffered in my memory. Yeah, well, I think Tom Sutton followed him very briefly. And, I like Tom Sutton's stuff, but George Perez is better.
Because, you adapt the movie, then you have to come up with new stories.
Yeah.
And that universe is pretty messed up. And even in the novel, it was pretty messed up. But Kraft was kind of right about the movie, because there are some things that don't really make sense, like Carousel.
It was one of those movies that everybody liked, but no one thought was great.
Yeah, No, the visuals are very interesting.
Yeah.
They are,
Everybody
and
loves those Sandman guns and
mhm,
uniforms.
yeah, and some totalitarian aspects are interesting to explore. But then when they go into the mysticism crap and
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
the total the total social disconnection, in spite of the fact that they all live huddled inside a dome and
right.
they have no knowledge of outside,
Mhm.
and they really never explain what Box is doing, why Box is sentient, and why he's freezing people.
Infinity says the movie doesn't match the novel and the comic differs from both. Yeah, they had, and the lead up to it, they had all the stuff about the novel and the authors, some talking to them, and I have to actually say, I didn't read the novel till years later, maybe a decade later.
Mhm.
And I have to say, this is one of the few instances where I liked the movie better than the novel. Because I thought the novel just went off the rails at the end. Um,
Uh,
have
yeah,
you
I
read the
can see
novel?
that. I read the novel. The movie was on repeat on TCM Europe.
Uh-huh.
I could see. I think I saw that thing like 6 times a year, 5 years in a row. So I saw Logan's Run quite a few times, and I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah.
I found the novel for a euro, amazingly,
Uh-huh.
uh, in the early 2000s in English. I lost it. I don't know what happened to it, because I went looking for it and couldn't find it. But I'm not sure if I let a friend have borrow it and he never returned it. But I read the novel, so I knew that the novel was different.
Right.
It, it it creates a social situation that's not very believable at first, because how the hell do you expect 20-year-olds to organize in a political movement and
Right.
actually beat society?
Mm-hmm.
That part is not very believable. But okay, let's start that with the premise. Then the the it's very, uh, since they have no adults,
Right.
because in the novel they die at 21, not at
Right.
30. the it's a very libertine society, so, and they do, so there are a lot of references to underage sex.
I,
And
I was I was okay with most of like the beginning of it. It was real. I don't remember. I remember it being vague enough like the movie that I just accepted it until the end. The end, I specifically remember where I think the old man was in the end, but there
yeah,
end in the novel it ended up there was a sanctuary and it was on the
yeah,
moon.
yeah,
So like the end of the book, they all a bunch of them just go to the moon, and it was like
yeah,
the Sandman who was hunting him in the movie turns
yeah.
out to be disguised himself as the old man, and he was
Mhm.
also the one who's on Logan's side and brought him to Sanctuary. So like all of a sudden, the whole tone of the end of the book changed in the ending. And all of a sudden, it was like
Mhm.
we're going to the moon, and it's like what? You gave me no indication that you could go as a society could go to the moon, let alone have
Right.
a whole society up on the moon.
Hmm.
And if you have
And
a
that
whole
society,
society up on the moon, what do you care about these little 21?
yeah,
I just didn't know. It was very
right.
strange.
Hmm. Yeah, but in the movie, Carousel itself is strange because it's the bit of mysticism that makes no
Yeah.
sense given the how the society operates.
They specifically, the author specifically mentioned that too when they told him. They were like, oh, yeah, we're changing that. Oh, because they used, I forget that in the book there was a sleep shop. That's how uh, Nolan, who's the author, recalls his conversation with producer Saul David. Saul said, we're getting rid of your euthanasia thing, the sleep shop. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, MGM took your whole sleep shop concept and put it into Soylent Green, another one of our movies. And I said, Oh my God. And he said, well, we own the right to both books. So that's how Sanctuary. And so, as there were additional changes, as Nolan recalls in his further conversation with Saul David. Saul said, by the way, we're bringing in an old man. And I said, oh, you mean Ballard, the Sanctuary Master? That was who, in the book, who the other Sandman really was. And he said, no, we got a contract with Peter Ustinov. He's going to come over from England. He's going to take the part of this old man who lives in the Senate building with hundreds of different cats. And he quotes from T.S. Eliot all the time. And I said, where's Ballard? He said, we got rid of Ballard. And I said, so what does sanctuary mean? And he said, there is no sanctuary.
Yeah.
Which actually made more sense to me.
Right. Right, because in that regard, since everybody that escaped is supposed to be frozen by box,
Right.
Nobody goes to sanctuary.
Yeah. Evening comic crack. Let's see. Sleepy says Sutton probably didn't take the assignment as seriously as Perez. He was unusual in seeming to care about every assignment. Yeah. Sutton, I like Sutton's. I think he's got an interesting drawing style, but I don't know a ton about him. And the TV show adds more plot holes. They mentioned the reason why two reasons. Marvel was continuing the comic, but the series ended right in the middle of the second story because they never had the contract ironed out with the movie company. Because unknown to them, the movie company wanted to make a TV show. So that's why Marvel had to stop making the comic, is because the movie company wanted to do the Further Adventures TV show. Which makes me say, why would they care? Why would they care? Take the comic money, do your TV show. That's what everybody does.
Yeah.
But I guess at that time they didn't. Let's see. Finity says, some writers don't realize a good twist or subversion of expectations actually requires a setup, a subtle hint. Twists are hard.
Well, but you're not supposed to go. Logan is hunting for Sanctuary, running away from Francis. Psych! Francis was Ballard all the time.
Yeah, but a nice, more information in this little article on Logan's run than there was in the Crisis one. So it was, and they also mention how terrible the printing was. A lot of the details were lost. There's a little eye detail that's lost because it was the very beginning of plastic plates, plastic printing plates, and some of the plastic plates were melting on the press. So, says what the close-up of the runner's eye from page 30 from issue 2 shows the effects of the plastic plates on the quality of printing. Meaning, wow, you can't even see. Let me show you this close up. The close up of the eye, you see how it has those lines in it? They're not even on the printed page.
Huh.
That's how bad the printing was. Yeah, like I said, Logan's Run, I always had a soft spot for Logan's Run. I always liked it, but like I said, it's nobody thinks it's a great movie. We all just kind of like it. It's kind of fun. There was some good stuff in it. Sleepy says nostalgic fans should demand the return of melting plastic plates. Exactly. Vanity says, after watching Alien for the 40th time, I now think Ash being a robot. Spoiler, that's a little too out of left field. I'm okay with out of left field. That doesn't really bother me so much. If you like things not out of with all sorts of mysteries, a mystery box show. New episode of Severance dropped today. That I've been enjoying that one a lot. And I've been enjoying like going on TikTok and watching all the videos people make each week, trying to figure out the mysteries of the show. It's been very good. Details from the printing. So I got a facsimile edition. Oh, they also mentioned there was a continuation. I had forgotten about this because I have it. Bizarre Adventures number 28 with the arena, art by Michael Golden and Steve Mitchell. There was a story called The Huntsman, which is clearly a Logan's Run story, except unlicensed, and they don't mention it's Logan's Run. But it's clearly a Logan's Run story. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that one. But I'd forgotten about it until I saw this right here, The Huntsman. And they mentioned there was a Malibu Graphics Logan's World #1, a faithful adaptation of the novel. I think there were 3 novels, and they were going to make adaptations of all 3, but Malibu only got the first 2 done. And I think, who was it? Nolan, who's the writer of the original novel, he loves comics because he said he started his career, wrote several Mickey Mouse adventures for Walt Disney Comics. So he was happy to do comics, but you hardly ever see this. I think it was the stories were written by Tom Mason with Chris Ulm and illustrated in black and white by Barry Blair. Nolan relates, Malibu did use the book. They used all the dialogue from the book in both adaptations and all the structure of the book and the characterization and everything. The artwork was terrible. It's like nobody who's actually in comics ever wants to say the artwork was terrible. They even when the artwork is terrible, they're like, well, I wasn't a huge fan of the art, but no one ever wants to say the artwork was terrible. But Nolan says straight out the artwork was terrible. Guess I've never seen it, but I guess he's not a fan of Barry Blair's Logan's Run artwork.
Well, Barry Blair has that style that you immediately identify as barely good enough for indies.
Yeah.
You look at the guy's art, man. This guy works in indie publishers.
A mystery box. That's the opposite of setup. A setup with no payoff. At least when Jay Brady, that's not a mystery box show. A mystery box show, they set up all the mysteries and payoff. J.J. Abrams is a what the hell is going on in this show. Mystery box show is a kind of a different thing because it all takes place within a construct. So the beginning, middle, and end is all like Severance. It's only going to be 3 seasons, 8 episodes apiece, and it's all written already. There was no mystery box in Lost. I think Lost was the beginning of a new genre, and the genre was what the hell is going on in this show. You don't even know what's going on in the show. A mystery box implies that there's a box within the mysteries within. At least to me, that's what I always thought it meant, as opposed to an open-ended mystery, where in a mystery box show, they can give you tons of clues because they know the ending. And that's what Severance is doing. And people love going over all the clues. Naked underage elves. There we go. Elf Lord, was that his?
Yeah.
Oh, what? Oh, a setup with a payoff? Now you're talking my line. No, we don't know if the payoff's going to be good or bad, but there's going to be a payoff. Like I said, but and that's in Severance. But like a show like Lost, they didn't know what they were making it up as they go along.
I don't think like Lost was the first. The first one was Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks is a
maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Twin Peaks was cult. Lost was big hit. There was tons of at that time. Even if it wasn't the first, it was the one who popularized it.
Right.
Because all of a sudden, for the 3 years after Lost, there was 20 shows just like Lost. There weren't a lot of shows like Twin Peaks when it came out.
No, but the X-Files was kind of it, or it morphed into it, because the first season of the X-Files is still kind of a procedural.
Yeah.
But then it's all about the alien conspiracy, and the more they pile on the alien conspiracy, the less you understand.
Yeah.
And I never quite figured out what Millennium was about.
Right. I think those are more continuing show. You know what the
Right.
show is about. Lost, we didn't know what it was about.
Right.
That's
Yeah, I
what made
guess so.
Lost stand out. We had no idea what Lost was about,
Mhm.
besides figuring out what's going on in this show. We knew
Right.
what X-Files was about, alien
Mhm.
conspiracy.
Right. Yeah.
I never watched Twin Peaks besides the pilot episode, so I don't know if anybody knew what that show was about. But to me, it was just about weirdness.
Yeah, it was because they supposedly they were investigating the death of the death of a woman in the town of Twin Peaks, but a lot of things happened that had nothing to do with the death. So I guess that's why it didn't go anywhere because people liked it, but I guess they didn't know what it was, what it was that they liked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gave up on Lost like after 5 seconds.
Now I watched. Well, to say I watched Lost is a bit of a misnomer because I had Lost on as I worked, kind of thing. It was a background show. And I'll always say any individual episode of Lost was pretty good. But overall, it was. Matter of fact, I started watching, I mentioned this like last year, chronologically Lost. Someone re-edited all of Lost into chronological order. It takes 27 episodes before they get to the plane crash. I watched about, I don't know, 50 episodes of it, like cycling on my stationary bike or something. And I kind of lost interest after that. I never finished it. It's still sitting, but yeah, you can watch chronologically Lost. Well, let's see. Finity says J.J. Abrams famously gave a TED talk about setups with no payoffs, which he referred to as mystery box. Like I said, I don't know the exact definition people use of these terms, but I figure a mystery box has to have a box. There has to be edges to it in which but who knows? Maybe J.J. Abrams doesn't think that. But I would call a mystery box show a show that has a beginning, middle, and end all planned out with mysteries in it that you can write. Like Severance has all these clues and stuff they're dropping as to because like the idea behind Severance is there's this company that is making this chip they can put in your brain where you're severed. When you go into work, you don't remember the outside world. When you go home, you don't remember your work day. Why are they doing this? What does this mean to them? And there's all sorts of stuff going on, and we get to see who they call the innies, who are the people at work who are doing some job they're not sure what it is. Then when they leave, they don't remember that, and they're a completely different person. And there's all sorts of mysteries going on within Lumen, is the name of the company, as to why they're doing this, what's the and they drop all these hints in it that pay off in later episodes. You can see what this meant in an earlier episode, but the only way they can do that is because they have the whole thing written already. And all of Severance is the length of the first season of Lost. It's kind of like that it's 24 episodes. That's one season of Lost. So that's to me is a mystery box show just because it's got dimension, it's got boundaries. That's why it's a box. The whole GGR Martin debate about gardener writers versus architect writers. No offense, I think gardeners are fools. I know what you mean. What he's talking about is architects who construct a story and gardeners who plant something and let it grow, and they don't know what it's going to turn into. Well, real gardeners do, but he obviously doesn't know to garden. I have a father who's a master gardener, so they know what they're doing. They plan. You don't just plant a garden and not know it's going to show up. But that's his gardeners plan as much as architects do. If you don't, you won't get your crops. Obviously, like I've heard that before, and I always go, whoever made this up doesn't know what gardeners do. They don't just plant things and then tend to them. They plant stuff in, the Three Sisters. you got to plan that out. The plants that support you. But anyway, it's kind of like the writers who make it up as they go along, and the writers who plan it out. That's the gardener and the architect. So I take issue with Gardner. I'm kind of team architect too.
Yeah,
but I like planning.
Yeah, no, of course you need planning, but
Oh,
if your
some
if your
writers
planning
don't.
is to
I'm telling you that there was nothing more crushing to my friend Thomas, who I worked with in the Marvel bullpen in the early 90s, as then when he started working at Marvel and found out there was no plan. No writers, plenty of writers didn't know what they were writing next month in the comic. And that's how they liked it. Some did, some planned out. Some had zero idea. Some liked to write themselves in a corner, as they say. That's just the way. If you think all writers have a plan, they do not. I can assure you of that. Comic right, but there's no guarantee that your plan will come to fruition as a gardener. Yeah, there's a lot more that affects the ability of the crops to grow. There is, but you plan. You put certain crops in certain places. When you plant roses over here, you don't plant, I don't know, whatever the enemies of roses would be. I'm just saying, you do a lot of planning as a guy, more planning than people. You don't just plant willy-nilly. Writers actually write willy-nilly. There's plenty of them who do. There's plenty of them who don't know how their book's going to end when they start their book. That's why there's so many bad endings.
Well,
Sleepy says when it comes to novels, a lot of architect writers' work is very dry. That can happen too.
Yeah, I think what you should what you should do is you should write the first page, you should write the last page, and then you figure out how to get from the first to the last.
That's what a planner does. There are so many comic writers who do not know how their story is going to end.
Okay, but that's not how I see a planner. How I see a planner. Okay, this character has to do this, and then that character has to do that, and then the other one, and they have to go here, and then I have to make this intricate so that everything connects.
There were writers, especially in the 70s, like who never did any of that. Like I said, comic, you can plan the story out as you write it. It takes a life of its own in the reader. It can take a life of its own on you. But once again, you can plan a story part doesn't happen with some writers. They're flying by the seat of their pants. They don't know what they're going to write until they sit down to write it. That's just how they work. I can't work that way. I can work that way drawing. I can't work that way writing. Then it's interesting. You can deviate from your plan, but only if you have a plan to deviate from. That's if you're a planner. Yeah. Architects plan, sure, but it's always up to the reader to discern me. Yeah, that's a whole thing. What the author intends versus what the reader gets is a whole other discussion. I'm just talking about writers who don't really plan much. And that is not uncommon in all writing places. There are plenty of writers who never plan anything. Lost wasn't planned. As we said before, they had no idea what was going on that show. I know that from a friend who's a friend of the writers. They were making it up as they go along. Titkoff, how are we going to write next one? With Ravage 2099. Smog Monster. That's how Stan Lee wrote. Next issue, The Rhino. Or that's how he told John Romita to write, famously. Finity says, actually, yes, it is not necessarily planning every page. It's about planning the first and last pages. That's actually the secret of writing. Good call. Yeah, that's what I love. Some people don't do that. That's what a planner does. And if you want, like I said, sometimes planning the whole thing out can make things dry. You can lose your interest halfway through. That's true. Sometimes planning, I like to plan the beginning and the end myself. But some writers, that's why there's so many bad endings, because they write themselves into a corner and have to write the ending, and they just do the best they can, which is And you'll hear writers say that, I didn't really, I didn't know what I was going to do for the ending, and it just kind of happened. I've read that many times. Like, especially I haven't read that for many newer writers. I think more planning goes on these days in comic books, at least. Um, but it didn't used to. Sleepy says, other than novelists, I don't hear too many writers who know the ending when they start. Yeah, there's
Well, I suppose that that romance writers don't need to plan that. I mean, compared to to mystery crime detective, romance is a lot more formulaic. Uh, on science fiction and fantasy, since the main focus is the world building, I suppose you have to do a lot of planning. Well, the thing about when you do world building on science fiction and uh, what's happened to my brain?
you're tired tonight.
Yeah, on science fiction and fantasy is that
Yeah.
you end up you put in too many details in the world that you're not going to use in the story.
Mm-hmm.
So you're wasting time.
Yeah, Common Crack says the main character Bob from Twin Peaks wasn't planned. Was a technician who got hiding in the set when they were rolling and the camera caught him. All the plans in the world can close you off to accidents that spark creativity. Yeah, that's why a lot of people just like to plan the beginning and the ending, and they'll change the ending if they have to, because especially on collaborative things like TV, and especially TV in those days where there was never a long-term plan for TV shows, like, but only I don't even know when long-term planning started on TV. I don't even know if it is. Like with miniseries, there's plan, but most shows, like something like Supernatural, the guy who runs that always says who's doing The Boys now. It's like, I got a 5-year plan. That's what I got. 5 seasons, then I'm out. And Supernatural kept going on because somebody came in and took over the plan. But that's what he had, 5-year plan, and that was it. And I don't think most TV shows can't plan beyond a season or two,
Right,
because they're going to be canceled.
Right, but that's okay. I mean, if there's something that you introduce in the first episode of a new season, and you know that you have to fix it, that you have to run its course until the end of that season, it's okay, because then you start something else on the next season, as long as you keep the characters consistent. Yeah. Which is the problem when you switch showrunners.
Yeah, and I can say that I had this very problem in my painting in the early 2000s, I'd call it, when I got so good at planning out my paintings that I got bored. I think the last painting I planned out that much was like in 2002, and I went, the painting's done in my mind. I don't even want to do it. So I had to come up with a new way to paint that I didn't plan, that I could still plan, but I didn't plan out as much, because like I said, I got to the point where I was like, this painting's done in my mind. There's no reason to do it. I'd just be going through the motions. So you can plan too much. Romance writers, housewife gets boned on page 46 by the gardener. Now fill up space and get there. Yeah, there is formula writing, that's for sure. This is a fascinating debate. I like planning, but hey, I like being open to new and exciting ideas. Yeah, me too. That's why I plan to an extent and then I stop. The Brits seem to be the only ones that plan a TV show. So, yeah, that's because their TV shows are all solid 6 episodes. They have to plan. They don't have enough of a budget to keep going. Their TV shows are publicly funded and not capitalist.
But the planning, you don't really need a lot of planning, because it's a 6 to 8 episode run, but there's no overarching plot line. For example, Death in Paradise. That thing is the absolute most formulaic murder mystery show on the planet.
I love Death in Paradise. You have a nice cozy mystery, one of those.
Yeah, but of course, I love Death in Paradise as well. I watch every episode. In fact, I rewatch every episode.
Oh wow!
But it's the same episode. It's like like watching Murder, She Wrote.
You don't have to pay that close of attention to it, but it's a very pleasant show. I enjoy that. Just been watching the new season 14.
Yeah, because
with a new inspector.
Yeah,
And
but
all the
most important,
inspectors don't want to be there. That's the.
yeah, but most important, Dwayne comes back. No, people miss Dwayne because the guy wanted to go out on a high, and he did that because it's the same guy who played the cat in Red Dwarf.
Huh. Finity is literally here planning his trilogy right now. Good evening, Missing Mars.
Hey,
Commentary. I don't think it's about budget. It's just the format. Yeah, I think budget has something. Budget and form. I think the two are intertwined. They don't have endless Hollywood money. So I think that affects their format and that affects the format. They don't feel the need to stretch out a show to 22 groups. If they were making millions of dollars doing it, they would. If everybody involved was getting super rich, they would. But that's not British television. So I think that has something to do with it.
Yeah, there was this comedy series set in World War II called Allo Allo.
Okay.
Man, the show by season 4, the show was nothing but the characters repeating their catchphrases, and it still went on to season 10. But they season 6 had 22 episodes because they were trying to get they finally put it in syndication in the United States, and they needed a US season.
But I noticed with streaming too, streaming I think is getting more like British TV.
Yeah,
because
right,
you have limited budgets.
Yeah,
you get in, 8 episodes.
Yeah, but
maybe a couple of seasons.
You're not filling a time slot.
Right.
So you do what you want, and you do what you need.
Mm-hmm. There's not that, American TV was a ravenous beast that needed to fill time slots, like you just said. So that's why shows had, 30 episodes way back when, because you needed to feed that beast. Oh, Renee. Is that one of the shows? Or is that a catchphrase?
No, yeah. Oh, Renee. And then the wife, because okay, so it's a British sitcom, but the series is set in France. It's in World War II, so they're in occupied France. So there's espionage. You have Gestapo agents. So there's the French characters, German characters, Italian characters, and British characters. The French, German, and Italian characters all speak with accents, and they all understand each other. They don't understand the British, and the British don't understand them. That's part of the joke. Yeah.
Yeah, Star Wars and Disney have limited budgets. Yeah, I think that's streaming now. You're right. Feed the beast of advertisers. Right. That was the beast they had to feed. That's why there were so many episodes. Now with limited budgets, because there's no advertising money. It's all, you know what it is? I think it's the way capitalism works too. Because now with all the money coming from subscribers, you know exactly how much money there is, and you can't endlessly grow. When your money was coming from advertisers, you had to keep those advertisers happy, and if the audience grew, your money kept growing. So I think that's the problem that streaming services are running into. With no advertisers, there's no one to charge more all the time. So it's like they can keep raising subscription prices, but that'll make subscribers drop off. Raising subscription prices can keep your price high briefly, and then it goes back down. So I think it has to do with the way these, streaming executives think, as compared to old time TV executives who had to feed that beast of advertisers. They knew that would always get them more money, feeding that beast of advertisers. But putting out 22 episodes of a show like Friends, a new show on Netflix, what's that going to get you? More subscribers than you got now? Probably not. So it's like a weird thing to think about. You stupid
Yeah,
woman, and you're not
yeah, that
seeing
was
how
a
they can
joke.
get
So
people stocking.
the thing, Rene was the owner of the cafe where
Mm-hmm.
all of the characters hung out, and that's why he all of the German officers were there, and that's why the Resistance wanted him to spy on the Germans. Uh, but at the same time, is trying to have an affair with the two waitresses, without the wife knowing it, without the waitresses knowing about each other. The other, and the guy is a fat guy, is a bald fat guy with a mustache. He is absolutely the least sexy man on the planet. Yet
Yeah.
85% of the women on the show fall hopelessly in love with him.
Yeah.
So since he's always trying to get some time alone with one of the waitresses, the waitress would usually signal to Rennie that she was horny and say, "Oh, Rennie." And the actress explained once how she got. They gave her a catchphrase. Okay, so you have to say, "Oh, Rennie." Oh, Rennie. No, I'm gonna do it like this. Oh, Rennie. And that becomes the catchphrase. And then they would be kissing, and Rene's wife would come in and she would say, "Rene, what are you doing with the servant girl?" And then he would say, "You stupid woman." And he would come up with the lamest excuse on why they were hugging. And she believed it always. But and that was it. Then the Michelle of the Resistance would come in, and she would explain. And before she explained the plan of what Rene was supposed to do, she would say, "This is the phrase that everybody who was a fan of the show remembers." You mentioned the show, and they will say this phrase: "Listen very carefully. I shall say this only once." But you got to watch it, otherwise it's not, because you have to watch the characters. They're all exaggerated. Also,
Yep.
the 85% of the women fall hopelessly in love with Rene, and the gay German lieutenant.
Well, I should show you some comics now.
Mhm.
I got 3 first issues this week. Let's show you the first one, which I really like this cover. Jump Scare. A fun cover. Some good artwork inside.
Oh, too
It's
much
by
lilac.
It's by Colin Bunn, Danny Luckert, and Jim Campbell.
Mhm.
And it's got a pretty interesting. I'll get some more of this. Dark Horse, $4 one, so it's got no good cover stock on it. And it's the story of this woman that I don't even know how old she is. She was raised in a Christian household, but she didn't take to Christianity. She loved horror movies. So her family kind of disowns her at one point. And then, what does this take place? There was some big event that this ties into. I forget what, where it was like some alien invasion or some alien invasion of elder gods that the superheroes fought off. I forget which superheroes she said they were. I don't know if it takes place in some other universe and she ran into some. This is her origin story. Remember when a bunch of elder god monsters tried to use Empire City for staging ground for world conquest? Well, the Vanguard Alliance, who I assume are the superheroes, stopped them, sent them packing. but there were a few leftovers lingering about. So this is one of the leftovers, sort of like elder gods, that opened its mouth and swallowed her, but she didn't kind of go anywhere. But she got she got superpowers, where she's and what's with the girl with superpowers? Oh, fight evil, of course. Where does she say what her powers were? She's got like when that thing opened its mouth and the most awful light spilled out, the voices of a million sorrows, a million insanities. But she's got like super strength, and she can call upon the weapons of any horror movie. So, like, to take on this one monster, she's got a chainsaw from here's it. She's got the Weed Whacker from I Spit on the Evil Clown's Garden, Part 2, 1984. It's this killer weed whacker thing. So she cuts apart a monster with that. She's got the Firefighter's Axe, Lunatic Dream, 1975. So she's a superhero with these horror movie monster weapons. And it was a pretty good first issue, I have to say. I enjoyed this one, Jump Scare. And Jump Scare is her superhero name. So it was a good first issue, this one. If you're looking for a horror superhero first issue, not bad. I don't think there's a lot of horror superheroes. That one I read a couple of weeks ago, or with the Chris Girusso cover, what was that? Carnage. He was a horror supervillain. Oh, which reminds me, did you see Chris put out a note that it's final order cutoff for 4 of his covers this week? Let me see if I can find which ones there are. Since he's not here to tell us, let's see. Final order cutoff is Monday for the first batch of Marvel Mini Universe connecting covers. That's the stuff it's for West Coast Avengers 6, X-Men 14, Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu 7, and Immortal Thor number 22. So tell your comic shop that you want those 4 Chris Girusso covers that do the official handbook covers that he redid. You got to get your order in at the comic shop before Monday to get those. You could let everyone out there know. He'll have 15 comics. I might do a special video of a month of March, since I'm going to be pre-ordering all the 15 Marvel comics with Chris Girusso covers. I might do like a special video on a month of Marvel. Probably the last time I bought 15 Marvel comics in a month was the early 80s, when I was still in high school. I was thinking about that. When I was at Marvel, I didn't read 15 Marvel comics a month. And they were free, sitting right there.
Yeah.
So I might do a video reviewing 15 Marvel comics, and after the month is over. That's just. When's the last time you read 15 Marvel comics in a month? Probably, maybe in a collected edition.
Well, yeah.
That was the only way you were getting them. So.
Look, I read the entire trade paperback to Earth X in 3 hours. I couldn't put it down. It was
that's sort of different, I guess, reading a trade paperback than reading 15 different comics.
Yeah, well, a couple of the essential.
15 new comics in a month. 15 new Marvel comics in a month.
No, I never bought 15
No.
issues in 1 month.
Not since the early 80s. Maybe Sleepy Reader has. I don't know because before he stopped buying so many new comics a few years ago, he may have read. I know he certainly, I've certainly read 15 comics in a month. That's easy. And I know Sleepy has too, but 15 Marvel comics in a month, that's a different thing.
I never had more than 8 comics on a pull list.
Yeah. Right.
And they weren't all Marvel.
No. Oh, never. Yeah, like I probably did in the early 80s. I can imagine, my childhood, I probably read 15 Marvel comics a month all the time. Sleepy says I often get 15 new comics in a week. But how do you think you've read 15 Marvels specifically in a month? Just out of curiosity, maybe if you're getting like between 10 and 15 a week, maybe you could get 15 Marvels. I know Sleepy buys whatever catches his attention, but I don't know how often Marvel catches his attention these days. The one Marvel comic I did get this week was another first issue. It's, of course, a Daredevil #1 facsimile edition.
Yep. The worst put together cover in history.
Well, I now know, reading the history of Marvel Comics according to what Jack Kirby has said, this was probably because Jack said before Fantastic Four #1, Jack came in with he wanted to do more superheroes for Martin Goodman. So he came in with what he called a blitz, which was about 10 or 12 ideas. And they all, and a couple people have, I think Jim Shooter said he saw some of the pages in the 60s or whenever. And he had a bunch of pages drawn up. Like, they think this is where that Daredevil picture comes from now, where he would draw up, like on a sheet of paper, a bunch of ideas and a bunch of drawings of the characters. And if you believe Stan Lee invented everything. If you believe Jack Kirby, a lot of the who doesn't have a history of lying, a lot of the they mined his ideas and turned them into some of the early Marvel comics. And the Stan Lee's way of getting him paid for those idea pages he did was to use those to repaste them into covers or splash pages. So that's why around this time there are so many Jack Kirby sort of paste up covers and pinups and splash pages, was because they think, a lot of people now think that those were the original pages, idea pages he brought in. So I think so that's why this Daredevil #1 cover looks like a pasted up mess, is because it actually is a pasted up mess. And it was a way to get Jack Kirby paid for drawing that stuff, because why pay him for his ideas?
Right. Of course, it also goes that Daredevil was so late that's why they put together the Avengers.
Yeah.
But I can see that. I mean, the Avengers does not look like an answer to the success of the JLA.
No. And you can also, and Daredevil was created by Stan Lee and Bill Everett. And you can believe Stan Lee's story about how he made Daredevil blind, or you can believe Bill Everett's story about, because he had a blind daughter, about making Daredevil. He was the one who came up with the idea of making Daredevil blind.
Yeah, but the idea to put out something called Daredevil probably came from Martin Goodman, because he was claim jumping an abandoned trademark.
Yeah, that could have been, or Jack Kirby could have had that name on his sheet because he knew Martin Goodman wanted to jump on. I mean, it could be either way, but who knows? But yeah, you're right. Martin Goodman would want to claim jump, no doubt. But it's fun to get a facsimile of Daredevil #1. Always fun. Sleepy says, maybe in the early days of my channel, these days I buy less than one Marvel a month. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, back to your early days. You got more Marvel. I remember. SBPT, 15 comics a week, only in my wetest dreams.
That's a lot. 15 comics a week is like 30 spawns over here.
Yeah. Sleepy Reader says, I'm living the comics life, SBPT. Yeah, Sleepy's he's a retired gentleman of leisure.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets to read 15 comics a week.
Yeah, it was either that or taking up golf.
Or becoming a gentleman farmer. That's what my brother-in-law does. But he was always farming before then, too. And the other #1 I got this week, I picked off the shelf. is Pop Kill.
Hmm.
This is put out by Mad Cave, $7 for the first issue. And this was a Jimmy Palmiotti Kickstarter, which I didn't get. I think this is one of his earlier Kickstarters. Issue 1, the story is by Jimmy Palmiotti and Dave Johnson. The art is by Juan Santa Cruz. The colors by Brian Reber, and the lettering by Sean Conant. And I guess you'd call it a spy book. And it's called Pop Kill, because it's about these two brothers. I think they're Japanese. Who run, they're in Japan, who run competing cola empires. See, one brother, Fizz One Cola, and the other is Popso Furious Cola. And they have industrial spies to do damage to each other. And think of our lead character as James Bond, who works for a cola company.
But I love that cover. It's the type of coloring you don't see anywhere. It's not even a usual type of cover, but it uses colors in a way that nobody wants to use anymore. I mean, there's hardly any lilac.
It's got cyan and red.
Yep.
And it's reminiscent of old movie posters.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's his name, Johnson. Dave Johnson is really good. He makes a lot of good covers. I don't know if you know him.
No.
Look up his covers sometime.
Oh, yes. Dave Johnson, yes.
Yeah, Dave Johnson. He does a lot of good covers. But this may have been my favorite of the Jimmy. Usually with the Jimmy Palmiotti Kickstarters, I get the digital version. Just because Kickstarter is the most expensive way to buy things. You know, if this was a $7 Kickstarter, I'd have to pay, $7 for shipping too. That's what makes it expensive. So usually I'd rather pay, $5 for the digital version. Sleepy hates golf.
Yes, of course you do. Everyone hates golf, including golf players. The reason they play golf is because they know nobody wants to go with them, so they can spend some time alone.
Let's count the pages. 6, 7, 8. 8 pages, so it's 32 pages for $7. Listen, I enjoyed it. I'm probably going to keep with the series. Mad Cave is putting out a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, holy cow. But this one I picked up off the shelf. I think I saw it on Final Order Cutoff, and I think I was like, $7 was too much for me since I had 8 comics coming, and I had already put. I think I ordered Daredevil Facsimile Edition and Jump Scare during Final Order Cutoff, so putting an extra $7 on was like, eh. But then I saw it in the store and was like, all right, I'll get it. I had an extra. I could spend $37 instead of $30. That's how much it cost me this week. That's a fair amount for a week. That's one of my higher, more expensive weeks. $37. Usually, I've been keeping it under 30 mostly, but not this week. I've been trying to.
You need to start buying trades, so that you can save around $8 to $10.
No, thank you. I'll end up with too many bad trades. That's what happens. That's what happens. Want to see a weird magic marker thing that I've never seen before?
Magic marker.
Made a video, posted it yesterday about my new art supply haul.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I got was one of these new Pantone markers. Because I like to try out new markers. But these are expensive. I got, this is the Pantone marker, and this is the Pantone refill ink, which you can also just use as ink. $20 for that. I think this was $12 bottle of ink. This was like an $8 marker. But like Copic markers have an alcohol base, meaning you draw with them, the alcohol evaporates and it leaves dye on the paper. If you want to use a pigment-based marker, which is more permanent, you use a water base. But I've noticed with these, like, let me show you this. Where's a piece of paper, a little blank piece of paper. There's two tips. But I notice with these like fancy, here's another one, a Winsor Newton, these fancy pigment markers, there's a brush tip and there's a chisel tip. But look at that. Those look like two different blues, don't they?
Yeah.
A dark blue and a light blue. That's because the ink flows, doesn't flow as well through the chisel tip. Which isn't the case with these usually. So I was like, you know what? I think my that's what, once again, this, but pigment is more light fast. I was like, I bought one of these Winsor Newton pigment markers. And if you notice on the side here, it says in this tiny type, it says store horizontally. Now I usually store my my markers vertically. And I've always thought they want you to store them horizontally because what happens is it keeps the level of the ink even between the two tips. But I never use the chisel tip. I on all my sketch markers, I only ever use the brush tip. So I keep them stored like that, not only because it's easier to store them like that, but I keep the brush tip down. I don't care if the chisel tip dries out. I never use it. I want the brush tip all ready to go. So I pulled this one out. It's been stored vertically. And I went to test it today just to test it against that one. And let me see if I can show you this chisel tip up close. The chisel tip disintegrated. Let me see if I can press it against that so you can see it. It just mushes. The chisel tip just mushes. Chisel tips are supposed to be hard. Like this. It doesn't mush.
Right.
It's solid. I've never seen this before. It just probably because I had it stored like that, but the ink just disintegrated the chisel tip. I was like, whoa, look at that. I have never seen that before. Something new. So when they say store these horizontally, I think they really mean it. Your marker's not just going to dry out. The chisel tip, if you store that tip down, is going to disintegrate. I can't even get it back in the without. Whoa, comes right out too. You can replace the chisel tips. But why bother?
Yeah.
But that's what I discovered this afternoon as I can't even get it back on. Nope. Let's try trimming our chisel tip. Getting ink all over my marker and it's not cutting it. You know what? We're just going to wrap that around and stuff it shut. There you go. There, I got it clicked shut. There's a little marker excitement for you. Weird things that markers do. We'll call that section. Weird things that markers do. Let's show you another comic. What do I got that's interesting? Monstrous is back with issue 55.
Now, all those covers look alike.
Yes. This one actually looks more different than other ones, I would have to say. But I know what you mean. You know what it is? The technique can be so mushy that there's not really a striking image.
Right.
So if you were to look at them all, you could, of course, tell the difference between them. But it's so technique dominant. And, one of the characters is this amorphous tentacled blob, and the other characters are elvish looking manga women who all kind of look the same too, with, flowing hair, that unless you're looking at them side by side, they all blend together in my mind. I've never picked up an issue of, 55 issues in, I've never picked up a cover and gone, ooh, that one really gets me. I really like that one.
No, you just
Because,
go, oh, Monstrous. Oh, Monstrous is back.
yeah, Monstrous is back. There's a cover on it because there has to be a cover on. But I think a lot of covers are like that these days. I mean, it's not just a lot of covers are technique and not imagery. Hers is a blend of both, but the imagery is like so complex that it's not striking imagery. It's imagery if you had a book of her covers, you could probably look at it for a while.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to advertise for a job in illustration.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But here's the thing: you have a bunch of comic artists trying to do illustration and failing, and then you had an illustrator who did comic book covers and they were amazing. That's Jim Silkey.
Jim Silkey. Yeah, like that. I think what it is too, like for a lot of these indie comics, especially one on issue 55, the cover does not matter. No one's picking up issue 55 of Monstrous who isn't already picking up Monstrous. That's the way comics work these days. So I think that's it too.
Well, and it goes back.
Mushy tip.
And it goes back to what you said. It has a cover because it has to have one.
Right. Like I said, this cover isn't selling anyone this issue. Now this cover might, because it's a first issue. It might. I'm not saying it will. I think it's more striking, but not. This cover might get me to look at it. Well, it did, but I knew what it was already. Not my favorite. What's his name? Johnson cover, Dave Johnson cover either, but it's still pretty cool. But no one's picking up Monstrous 55 because of any cover they put on it, unless it's an alternate cover by Jim Steranko. So we get, you know what it is? They're probably not thought about that much. Sana Takeda's probably like, oh, I got to do the cover. Let me do the cover. And she does the cover. She's not thinking about, oh, what image could I use to boost up sales? That thought never. She does one of her illustrations, which are fine. Like I said, if I had a book of her covers, I could probably look at it for a bit, see all the different variations of stuff. But as a comic cover,
I don't think they're going to put out a book of Monstrous covers.
No, I don't think so. Well, they have collected editions. I figure a person is probably more likely to pick up Monstrous Volume 3 collected edition than any random issue. I mean, the probably more likely to pick up Monstrous Volume 1, but I imagine than anything. But I still imagine if you were sort of, well, if you walked into your comic shop and saw Monstrous Volume 3, and you wanted to check it out, would you buy it?
No, even the trade paperbacks have similar covers.
No, not because of the cover. Just because would you be more likely to pick up? Let's just say you went into a comic shop and you saw Monstrous Volume 3 and Monstrous 55. Which one would you be as a non-Monstrous buyer? Which one would you be more likely to pick up?
Volume 3. I mean, I may not have read the first two, but I imagine there's a complete story in there.
Right. That's what I mean. It's like nobody is going to pick Monstrous 55.
Mhm.
Both the same covers on both. Nobody. That's why I'm the cover doesn't matter, which is a little sad to me, but oh well. No, what's interesting about the issue though, I forgot to talk about the issue. We never even got into it. It was different than every other issue of Monstrous in that it was mostly splash pages, and it was mostly, I don't know, a weird transition issue that I've never seen in Monstrous before. It was kind of, here's some normal pages. It was kind of catching everybody up with the series. So I enjoyed it. It was pretty cool. But it was very, very different for an issue of Monstrous. I think it was catching up us normal readers too. I don't know if like someone could come in cold and read this issue and understand it. That thought just hit me. But they give you a story so far in it, and all the character breakdowns.
Right.
But yeah, it was really catching us up. A good issue. A good issue. But I've been really enjoying this one a lot lately. Since issue 50, when their side quest ended, I've been really enjoying. Not that I didn't enjoy the side quest, but they got back to their sort of main quest. You read any good comics lately?
Nope.
Nope. Been too busy talking comics on the internet, on YouTube shows.
Yeah.
And watching.
No,
what did you see on Graphic Man's channel that interested you? You weren't on the show, right?
No, I weren't. I wasn't on the show. They focused a lot on Harvey's this week. And I'm not really a fan. I mean, you were more likely to see a Harvey character than an Archie character over here, because the Brazilians had the rights to Hot Stuff and Casper, but they never really interested me. Even when I was a kid, I was not into the kiddie books. And here's the funny thing: you could tell that some of the Little Lulu stories that they published were not American Little Lulu stories.
Huh. Sleepy says we should start a petition to force Paulo to read more comics every week.
Well, the problem is that I can't afford to buy comics every week, or every month right now, for that matter. I still have to pick up The Road, and I have to pick up the Nicopol trilogy collected edition. And I really need to see how many issues of The Mercenary I bought, because the Portuguese publisher should be up to issue number 7 by now.
Infinity says, "Oops, is Paulo ready for recommendations? Is Jared? Oh, you want to recommend stuff to us? You could always do that. Yeah. Then a GoFundMe for Paulo's stuff.
Yeah, buy me comics."
I've wondered before on Graphics Man channel when I've checked out his live shows, or on the rewind, if like he and the guys on there really do they like those like old Harvey comics? Do they like to like read them, or do they like them kind of as objects to look through?
Yeah, there's
Because I wonder how much satisfaction a person could get out of reading old Harvey comics.
There's a nostalgia factor, and when you hear some of them talk, it's like they miss being kids, but they're
Right.
not really opening the comics because
Yeah, that's what
nobody wants
it's.
to read Little Audrey, okay? And don't tell me that you do. You're lying. You don't want to read Little Audrey. I'm sorry.
You're remembering being a child and the good
Yeah,
times reading Little Audrey.
yeah. And when people, there's a thing that some of them say that you collect comics from when you start reading, going back 10 years, and then you quit collecting comics after you've been reading for 10 years, which I disagree. What you have is your tastes change, so you don't get excited
Right.
about picking up next month's comic, but you are looking for something good to read. And a lot of them went through the period where they stopped buying comics and then they went back,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of breaks up your habit. So you try to go for the familiar, and you end up not trying out new stuff, or you expect the new stuff to be like the old stuff, which it isn't.
A lot of people can just relate their comics to their childhood. That's what they do. They they have no relation to comics in their adulthood because they read superhero comics or they read kids comics as a kid, and then they become adults and they want to, when they read comics, they want to be children again. But that's not what comics are when you're an adult generally. Like I have always been a new comic buyer. I've been buying new comics just about every week since I was 10. And I like new comics. So even as a 10-year-old, I liked new comics. But I think I am the outlier and not certainly by have you seen this meme that's been going around on Facebook? Post comic book cover that is stuck with you. It's like every one of my friends, not one of them has posted a comic book cover from the 21st century because they're completely, comic book covers are completely related to their childhood. And I'm like, that kind of makes me sad because comic books bring me such joy. And they don't even want that. They're like, no, I don't want new comics. I'm not 10 years old reading a comic again when I read a new comic. I'm like, can't you let the joy come into your life from new comics? I just find it so strange.
Don't you want to be a 55-year-old getting joy from reading a comic?
Yeah.
Well, I guess the reason is no, because I don't want to be 55.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's it. Sleepy says, I like to read old Harvey comics, but I buy more than I actually read. Let's see. Finity's got some. If you have an opportunity, I really recommend Howard Chaykin's American Flag, specifically issues 1 through 12, which have been re-released in hardback. I read those back when they came out. I haven't read them since, but I just started reading them digitally. I think I read the first few issues and then I don't read digitally that much.
Yeah, but I have that. I bought at the time, I think it was was it Image or Dynamite? No, it was.
Might have been Dynamite, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Put out that one like
2008. No, but not 4 years ago. About
20 years ago. It was a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was Image.
Flag good.
Flag good.
The main Flag was one of those comics that ended so badly that I forgot how good it was. It just kind of petered out and I stopped buying it long before it actually ended when Chaykin stopped drawing it.
Right. Well, it is Chaykin didn't have a plan to end it.
No. In those days,
but then again, right? That's the problem. That's the problem with all those the cool indie series from the 80s was that they were all thought that they were making a Marvel comic outside of Marvel. Right. So you just kept going.
Mm-hmm. But what they didn't realize was they were the ones behind the you can't just hand it off to someone else like Marvel does.
Right. Mm-hmm. because then
We
you
don't want to
notice it's not the same
see
thing.
American flag drawn by someone else.
Yeah, I mean,
Look at
you really
this.
do not like. I have the Nexus collected editions, and Steve Rude's art
Yes.
is so personal that it's such
It's the reason
a
to buy Nexus.
yeah. So when he quits and some I can't remember who takes over. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
bad. It's not bad. It's not a bad artist
Paul
at all.
Smith did some issues. They were fine.
Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
not Steve
But
Rude.
it's not Steve Rude.
Man,
Then he says, this week I finally read issue 50 just to see how it officially ended. I've never read issue 50. But I did read the last issue of Grimjack when it came out. That was another one without Tim Truman. I wasn't a fan of Grimjack.
And Dreadstar. I mean,
yeah.
When those issues have never been collected, so I read them. So I read them in the pirate site. And when Starlin quits drawing, and he brings in Luke McDonnell. Like Luke McDonnell?
Yeah.
For cosmic stuff? And it's not cosmic stuff because Starlin was in one of his funks where he wanted to prove that he could do more than cosmic, which he can. He just doesn't get the recognition that it does from cosmic stuff. And it eventually peters out. And what's worse, this is when it's already at first instead of Epic, and he hands the comic to Peter David and Angel Medina, and that thing does not look like Red Star at all. Especially because Peter David also has his own writing style that you notice, and that thing is a comic written by Peter David. It's not Red Star.
How many issues did Grimjack go?
15. No, more than that. 6. No.
Yeah, because I don't.
I think it reached 80.
Grimjack.
And then there was a graphic novel.
It's wiki.
Nexus went up to 80.
But anyway, I don't. Now that I'm remembering, I don't think it was the last. I just checked my database. Did he end up taking over Munden's bar? I don't remember. I didn't actually read the last issue of Grimjack. I read issue 43. I collected all the Tim Truman stuff is 1 through 22. And then I think I stopped after that. I think Tom Sutton may have taken. Speaking of Tom Sutton, I think he may have taken over for. And then I read. It wasn't the last issue of Grimjack I read. It was the last issue. It was issue 43, which I think was the last issue of the story where he took on Dancer. The Grimjack story was, it took place in Sinashore, which was this interdimensional city where places moved in. It was like a nexus of realities, this city, where different realities moved in and out. And Grimjack was a gladiator in one of the gladiatorial arenas. And of course, you know, when you're a gladiator, you're a slave. So he didn't have his freedom. And eventually he won his freedom. But the only gladiator who could beat him was this guy named Dancer. And they were frenemies. And when Grimjack got out, he was like, I guess you'd call him a PI kind of thing. He, you know, was a troubleshooter. Dancer ran he was a criminal. He ran a criminal organization. Mm-hmm. So Grimjack was often running into Dancer's organization. And Grimjack was always a little afraid of Dancer because he was the one guy who could beat him.
Yeah.
So finally, 43 issues, however many issues later, they had their final confrontation, and Grimjack kicked his ass easily. And Grimjack was like, "You haven't practiced in a decade." He's like, "You're just a," he's like, he was actually shy. He's like, "You're just a mob boss now. You can't fight anyone." And Grimjack, of course, had been in the trenches all this time, out
Yeah.
there doing things and going up against Dancer's henchmen and stuff. So when he had his final confrontation with Dancer, he just kicked his ass. It was an interesting, like I said, I remembered all these years later because it was an interesting ending. How often does the hero just kick the crap out of the villain just because the villain hadn't gotten into any real fights in a decade? Then he says, I actually lost all my Grimjacks along the way. There are a series of trade paperbacks? I don't think there are. I don't think there is.
There are, but not they don't collect everything.
Yeah.
There are those little ones that
I know there are some Kickstarters for the Truman stuff.
yeah, but those that were digest size that
Oh,
IDW was supposed to put out, but then they were released by First Second.
yeah. I reread the first 22 issues like 2 years ago and enjoyed them thoroughly. So it was a good series.
They also did John Sable.
That I tried to reread like 15 years ago and couldn't get through more than an issue or two of it.
I think it's very good, and
I'll have to try it again.
It's very personal for Mike Grell, because he focuses he ropes you in with this looks like a superhero, but then you notice that it isn't.
It was
and
actually the art on it that let me down a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, oh, I don't think I like Mike Grell's art as much as I used to.
But the writing is very, very strong, and the work with the characters, that's why you stay. It's a bit like you're reading 70s Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Because it focuses a lot on Sable's civilian life and how he affects all the characters around him. Because he's the craziest one. There's even a black cat. It's a black cat type character.
I have I still have all my original issues I bought in the 80s, so I liked it then, obviously.
Yeah.
It's just when I went to reread it, I don't know, 10 years ago, I was like, I could have just been in a mood too. So
right, it's that type of thing that it gets better. It gets better as it goes along. Because in the first issue, you still have to try to convince. In the first issue, you convince people to stay. So you focus there. Maggie the cat. That's it. Exactly. Because she's a master thief. And because the first issue has a lot more action than what's usual.
Right.
Especially when you find out that he's a children's writer, but the children's writer is the secret identity. He puts on a wig and a mustache so that people don't know.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Then he says, I have the first John Sable freelance collection, another book I got at the time every month. Awesome stuff, in my humble opinion. Yeah. I'm going to have to give it, I'm going to have to try. Like I said, at one time I went back to reread it, I don't know, 10 years ago. So like, it wasn't as bad as Whisper, mind you. I went to reread Whisper, and I've
never read Whisper.
Wow, this is not written well.
I've never read Whisper or E-Man.
E-Man I remember being okay, but like I said, I used to buy Whisper. I was missing. I think I went to reread it. Sort of like when mycomicshop.com opened. I don't know when in the in maybe the late aughts. When I discovered it, since they had so many cheap indies, I filled in like a few of the issues of Whisper I was missing, and that's when I went to reread it and went, ooh.
Right.
And you know what I want to reread now that I never particularly wanted to reread? I still have the issues of here is Kamui.
Okay.
Because they just came out with a collected edition of Kamui, which hasn't been seen over here ever. I think it's going to be in 2 volumes, 2 really big volumes. And everybody I see is all excited about the new Kamui collected edition because no one's gotten to read it. and everybody likes it. And people, I'm reading reviews of it, like, holy cow, this was more violent than I thought, because it was a Japanese series from the '60s, and I
Okay.
bought it back in the '80s when, I don't know, First or Eclipse was putting it out. I forget when, and I enjoyed it, but I haven't read those issues since then, and they're in some closet somewhere. I'm gonna have to track it down before I can read it. Let's see if my database knows where it is. Sometimes my database is right on target. Sometimes I've moved things and not updated it. Let's see. HIJK. Kamui, I have 1 through 37. Uh-oh, it says it's in a bookcase. It's not. It's in a box. So my database is not up to date on where my Kamui is. I have to dig through boxes to find it. Kabuki or Kaboom? Kamui. That's right. That's one that should be spelled. Otherwise, you'll have no idea what I'm saying.
Yeah. Those were the kind of the first manga that made
Right.
it big in the U.S. was Kamui and Lone Wolf and Cub.
Mai, the Psychic Girl, MAI, of which my
and,
copies are in France now.
Yeah, and I think Barefoot Gen was actually the first one that was published, but it wasn't as big. At least people don't mention Barefoot Gen.
Oops, none of the above. Thank you, Paulo. Comic Crash says, finally got my Kamui books yesterday. Eclipse first published some of it in English. It's a great read. Really looking forward to getting the whole thing. Yeah. It was Eclipse who published Kamui? Okay. Yeah, I still have those 37 issues that published. I don't know, maybe the first book in there. But they were published the American way too. They flopped them all. I wonder if the new Kamui collection is the Japanese way, unflopped.
It should be.
Crack will have to tell us. This week is the J.G. Jones Dust to Dust. J.G. Jones painted artwork. Let me show you a little of this. Comic Crack says the new ones are unflopped. And this is a straight up Dust Bowl drama. May have just turned into a murder mystery too. Those of you who don't know what the Dust Bowl was, that was the Great Depression here in North America when all of the Great Plains farmland, or not all of it, but a whole lot of it turned to dust. And people had to leave the middle of the country. The farmers couldn't farm anymore. And a lot of them moved to California. And so the Dust Bowl is going on. There's a WPA, Works Park Administration photographer. That was a government program during the 30s that would pay artists to do artwork. And she's a photographer who gets paid to go around the country and do artwork. Works Progress Administration, was that the name of WPA? Meanwhile, these people get caught in a firestorm and may have been set on fire, killed and set on fire. That's what the sheriff says. But the mayor says, nah, that didn't happen. They just got caught on fire from the dust storm and the extra gas they were carrying. So there's this conflict between the sheriff and the mayor. The mayor doesn't want any of that bad news in his town. It's already fallen apart. So I've been thoroughly enjoying this. There's like, I have never read a comic book Dust Bowl drama mystery, murder mystery now. So that one's been pretty good. Let's see. Unflopped says the new one is. Eclipse published some stories from the middle-ish of it. Maybe they took over when first went out of business. I can't remember. I'd have to look at my issues. D&Q is publishing them from the start of the run in order, too. Okay. Jared Previews has 7 Years of Darkness, Year 3, number 1, coming out in May. I'll have to order that one. I was wondering if, like, the last issue of 7 Years of Darkness, I was like, is this the end of year 2? Because it doesn't say end of year 2. But it was kind of like seemed like it went as many issues as year 1 went. But that's definitely going on my my pull list. I've been keeping my eyes open for it, but I probably won't be on there since it's out in May until March or it's 5 weeks before it comes out. It'll be on final order cutoff, but I'll put it on there. James Schmelke. SBPT, my first manga I read in Portugal was Striker. They picked the Shonen Jump characters and published them in comic format. An interesting way to publish manga. Okay. Have you ever seen that, Paulo?
Nope. I don't remember
Striker.
I remember when they published. I remember when they published Ranma 1/2 here.
Oh yeah, Ranma 1/2.
Mm-hmm.
And the second issue of Paul Azacetta's and Rick Remender's The Seasons came out. And I liked it better than issue 1, only because there was just something with the story, the style. Issue 1 had that, it was extra sized and had that like 20 pages of the girl chasing a letter, sort of like the Red Balloon short where they had a little girl chasing a balloon.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't care for that. And it didn't get into the story. And I guess they were just trying to set it up as whimsical. But in this issue, we get into, it's called The Seasons because it's about 4 sisters, all in the autumn, summer, winter, and spring. Is that their names? I don't know. Let's get to the page that introduces them. And something's been happening to them. Summer Seasons is a model / actress. Autumn Seasons is an adventurer. Which Seasons is that? Winter Seasons is an avant-garde painter. And Autumn Seasons is only 13 years old, so she's not anything yet. But she's kind of the star of it. And something happened on one of Autumn Seasons' adventures that got her sending a letter to her little sister saying, you all 3 of you have to leave town. Something's coming for you. So she was trying, and their parents disappeared / died mysteriously. I fully expect them to come back at some time because that's always what happens when children's parents die mysteriously or disappear. They always come back in the middle of the story. So I'm fully expecting that. But we get introduced more to the characters here. We get more. We still don't know what the real danger is. But I thoroughly enjoyed this issue. Which I knew, like I said, the only reason I wasn't too fond of issue 1 was for stylistic reason. Like there's the style of the storytelling made me go, I don't care about the little girl chasing the letter. I'm not finding it whimsical like they're expecting me to. So good issue 2. Nice stuff. Paul Azaceta, former Marvel bullpenner, so I know him from the early 2000s. Though I haven't heard from him since. He's not really on social media much. He was on Twitter, but just to promote his stuff. I don't know if he's still on it. Have you ever read any of Paul Azaceta's stuff? He did Outcast, Rick Remender.
I have something. It was not Outcast. Did he do something with Mark Waid?
He did Marvel stuff too. He did like
Marvel
with Marvel, a couple issues of that. So he's done stuff over here and there for Marvel and DC, but I only get his indie stuff.
Yeah, I didn't buy Outcast, but I think I have something he did. Let me.
He's good. I like his stuff in general.
But I think I have something here, but I didn't read it. If that's what I'm thinking of. Oh wait, he did Punisher Noir. Then I may have that around here somewhere.
Punisher War. SBPT says Yap, Ranma, and Striker. And we had a first issue of Sailor Moon that almost no one had the chance to get because the publisher went chapter 11. I was eating when you were talking about it, but I'm reading Dust to Dust as well. I haven't picked up issue 3 yet, but I'm liking it so far. Yeah, it's really well done, and I like different, I like, I'm finding it fascinating that this is what they're choosing to do with the comics medium, telling us a Dust Bowl um, a Dust Bowl drama done all in painted sepia tones. As I've always said before, if it's right up my alley, it's probably not commercially viable. So that they would choose to do it makes me go, wow, that's interesting. They must be madmen. And here's my other advice for the week. As 62 Lefty Blues says, I'm picking it up too. I usually have to wait. I usually wait until I have 3 or 4 issues, then read it. It's a good read. You'll like it. What was that, Paulo?
Potter's Field. That's what I bought once, but I've never gotten around to read it.
I don't think I read that one. Now that you mentioned that name, I remember it, but for some reason, I don't think I got it.
Yeah, yellow coat. Yeah.
But my other advice of the week was back everything up. Here is my photo drive that died, but I had it backed up. So I bought a new drive, copied from my backup over to it, rebacked it. I actually had to buy a new backup hard drive because I have 2 photo drives. This is photos, and I have photos 2 also, which has like all my photography and family photographs from the last 40 years on it. So if I lost this, all that would be gone. So I have it backed up here, and I have it backed up off site. The place called Backblaze.com. Like for $8 a month, they'll back up every hard drive I have. They're like, we don't care how many hard drives you have, we'll back them all up for $8 a month. Like, cool, I'll do that. So I have photos and photos too. Photos, as you can see, is a 3 terabyte drive. Photos 2 is a 2 terabyte drive. I had them both backed up to a 5 terabyte drive. I bought a new photos drive, and it's a 4 terabyte drive. So I had to buy a 4 terabyte drive to back it up. So I had to get 2 hard drives. Spend $100 each on a new photo drive and a new photo backup drive. But now I'm set. If I had lost all this stuff, I would have been like very upset. But back up your stuff, people. Otherwise, and it gave me like no warning. I came home Monday night. My desktop computer is over here. I'm sitting there watching TV. I'm hearing this weird buzzing sound, like really low. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, when I hear a weird noise from my computer, it usually means a piece of equipment is going. So I went over to my computer, and sure enough, this drive was not showing up on the desktop. And I was like, bought some new ones. A disaster averted. Everything is fine. No sacrifices yet, Jared. Powerful Remender story. The series will end in 4 or 6 issues, I believe. Yeah, that's it ends that soon, SP. That's one that slipped by me. That's one I wish I'll have to get the collected editions because I've seen so many people saying good things about it that I was like, that Remender series. I'm buying 2 Remender series right now. I'm buying the new Paul Azaceta one and that one that I can't remember the name of now, about the 2 kid superheroes on the Superman planet where Superman took over the planet. That's a good way to go. 62. Yeah. So I want to read The Sacrificers, but I haven't gotten it yet. But I've seen at least, you're probably the 4th or 5th person in my little orbit here who I've heard say good things about Sacrificers. Mm-hmm. Has that got on your radar, Paulo? Sacrificers? A no. Rick Remender series. I forget who's drawing it.
That's funny. I usually like Remender, but I have to read one issue at one issue at a time. Yeah. Even inside a trade paperback, because his writing is dense. It doesn't look like it, but it is.
I often do that too. Like I like to read an issue, maybe 2, or put it down, even in a trade paperback. Sometimes, like even with something like what was it, Sigil? that cross-gen omnibus I got. That reads really fast. But but it was also written with cliffhangers in it. And sometimes after I hit a cliffhanger, I like to close the book and put it down for at least a few minutes, if not an hour or whatever, because I like to feel the cliffhanger. If you can just turn the page, there's no cliffhanger. I like to let the cliffhanger sink in for a little while before I reread. Or something like Master of Kung Fu, which I haven't even got back there. I can only read one issue at a time of that because it's pretty dense, like you said. And that stuff was meant to be read one issue at a time with time in between the issues. So you're right. I read it like that too. Thank you. Comicraft says, I'm still waiting for the final issue of Grommets from Remender. Okay. Comicraft, I have to pick up issues 14 tomorrow, but the story seems to be in the final arc. Here's an interesting thing. Speaking of final arcs, this is A Bold New Era, Radiant Black, issue 31. Because issue 30 wrapped up the main storyline that's been going on since issue 1. And if you remember, this was the one when it was in issues like 24 through 30 or whatever it was. There was 2 issues a month. There was like 28.1 and 28. Because this was the book where it was a choice between 2 people being Radiant Black. And they split off into like alternate universe stories, where in one universe, this guy was Radiant Black, and in the other universe, the other guy was Radiant Black. So each month, so it was really more than 30 issues. It was more like 38 or 40 issues. I don't know. So finally ended that story of the giant space war. There was supposed to be these space civilization coming to destroy all of Earth. That's been hanging over the series since issue 1. That got resolved in issue 30. So in issue 31, they have to start over in a whole new thing. And one of the things he's like, he's in Chicago. A lot of Chicago has been destroyed because of the giant space war. So he's going around he's working with the police. He's like got his own scanner where they call him when they need help. So they said like a third of Chicago has been destroyed. So he's trying to help them clean up Chicago. He got a cat out of a tree. You know, whatever they scan him for, he tries to help with. But then we found out in this issue, everybody in the alternate world died. They lost the space war, and the aliens destroyed them all. Except some people, for whatever reason, some people in the government saved some people in the alternate world and put them into, because like most of the world has no idea that there was an alternate world where everybody died. They just don't know that. That isn't common knowledge. But it's become a conspiracy theory on the internet. So people are starting to believe that there was an alternate world, and most of the people from that world were put into witness protection, but somebody's been hunting them down. And then somebody, where is he? We'll show you him. He shows up. We get a glimpse of him, and then he shows up at the end. This guy right here took a shot at Radiant Black. So we think now he in the alternate world is responsible for its destruction. So he now is getting the idea that some of these people who were brought over want to kill him, including this guy who took a shot at him. They blame him for the destruction of the alternate world because in the alternate world, he's the one who did it. So that, I think, is starting our next storyline where some mysterious guy is trying to kill him as he tries to rebuild. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. Let's see. More than 2 chapters of the same series, and my brain starts getting bored. Well, there were, yeah, I know what you mean. And that's why I like to switch between things. Alternate universe stories, you say? Yes, alternate universe stories in this one. Has Radiant, now that it's got 30 issues, has Radiant Black made it over across there to Europe? Because that was one they could bring over.
In Europe, yes. In Portugal, no.
Oh, okay. They have collected editions of it in like France or something.
Yeah.
Or they have the English ones they just brought. Someone just bought.
Some people will buy the English versions.
But are there actual European printings?
Of course.
Okay, I don't know. When you say like I know, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I don't know what's on the shelves in Europe.
Well, in France, it's 5,000 graphic novels a year.
That's a lot. And I know you've said that like some stuff can't be brought over because it's not really ended. There's not really, they can't really license it.
Yeah, so they publish in France. They publish the first 3 volumes, so it goes up to issue number 18.
Okay. And it says visitors from a parallel universe. Now you're really talking. Yep. Let's see. You know what? I don't know if it was my mood, because I think I was still in work mode when I was trying to read this, but this issue didn't hit me. I'll reread it a second time, see if it's better. But we're kind of, after sort of 3 issues of a highly personal Marilyn Monroe and an agent story, we're now back to the main story and all the main points, and they were like reiterating some stuff and going over some stuff again. I was just kind of like, I just couldn't get into this issue. I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm buying the next one. But it could have been my mood. It could have been that I was thinking about the work, because I kind of was thinking about the work I was just doing and trying to get it out the door. So I took a break to read Department of Truth, but I don't think I got into it as much as I usually do. So it may have been me that made me not get into this issue, but I'll read it a second time. But like I said, it doesn't matter. It's not like I'm dropping the series after I didn't get into one issue. Holy shit, Department of Truth is still going? Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, I particularly liked issues, this is 28, 27, 26, and 25, which was a Marilyn Monroe and an agent of the Department of Truth sort of story. Yes, Tinian likes to deconstruct everything. I think I'm buying like 3 or 4 Tinian series right now. I got Department of Truth. What else do I have? I can't remember now. But I think I got one last week and the week before. And one of the new ones I just bought last week is a James Tinian series. If only I could remember what. Have you read much James Tinian?
Here and there.
World Tree. Yeah, that's the other one. That's the other one I'm reading by Tinian, and I can't remember what that first issue was that I got last. Oh, let me look at my.
But I have the first three volumes of Department of Truth.
Okay. Let me look at my.
And we talked about it about that issue where we're going through the diary written, and it looks like it was written with crayons, and you didn't want to read the pages.
Let This One Be the Devil. I think that was a James Tinian written one that I got the first issue of last week. I think that was it. Let This One Be the Devil. So that's my third James Tinian. Good stuff. Let's see, the final comic I got this week is another issue of Stefano Cartacelli's Long Cold Winter, issue 3. I don't know how this. I like it. He's become a automatic buy for me because I like his art. And I think I decided earlier with one of his earlier issues, he's just doing the most with the talent he has. Because he's just drawn the hell out of everything. And I don't think I find his style fun. And I certainly, and he might not be the most talented guy around, but he's making the most of his talent, and I appreciate that. He's like thinking about everything as he's drawing it and giving us whatever he's got. I like it. But this is the story of Peace Dog. Where's Peace Dog? This is some sort of devil. Some sort of devil right there who made a deal with Peace Dog, or he made a deal. He's punishing Peace Dog. Peace Dog is some soldier who did a lot of atrocities. And so the devil was like, if you die, I'm going to take you to hell, but I want you to live, but you have to live with everybody wanting to kill you, and you're not allowed to make friends with anyone or go anywhere. So he's in this post-apocalyptic New York City, and he gets hired by this little robot down there to leave him in upstate, to lead him to upstate New York, someplace where there's a robot heaven. And Peace Dog, if you look here, there's Peace Dog right there. He's missing an arm. He just lost his arm he got shot and he got his arm cut off this issue. That's why the devil is telling him, don't go upstate New York with this robot. That losing your arm was a warning. I don't want you to do that. But the Peace Dog is still doing that, at least for one more issue. But he ends up with, Peace Dog, you're fucked, as bounty hunters come to get him. So this has been a lot of fun. Comic Crack says, I like his art as well. Don't Spit in the Wind was the first time I saw him. Yeah, that was a good one. Then we got I think that was the first time. Was that the robot one? Or was that I can't remember. I'm not reading this one, though. You should. Like this one came out like right on the heels of his last one. I didn't even, I think I noted, I had to reorder the first issue. So I'm going to keep my eye on Mad Cave. I guess somebody at Mad Cave likes this stuff. Let's see who his editor is. And he obviously gets it done quickly on time. His editor is James B. Emmett. So he obviously likes his stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't think any has any Mad Cave made it over to Europe yet?
No. Maybe in Spain.
Yeah.
But I'd have to check title by title because I don't know who would have the rights for that.
I wonder if they have Let's see if they've got any international info in there. Sometimes they have for international stuff. A lot of people working there. Publication, I don't know. Publisher, senior editor, editor, production manager, print production manager, design director, graphic design. Let's go to the VPs. Direct mails man, associate sales manager, logistics warehouse manager, warehouse associate, director of marketing, marketing and communications manager, senior royalty and finance director, accounting director, finance advisor, assistant accountant, and data entry, accounts payable. So there's no foreign. They haven't hired a foreign guy yet, a foreign reprints guy or something like that. Because usually they have it in the indicia if they do. That's what the indicias are good for.
Yeah, I'd have to check title by title, and that's going to take a while. So I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. Here's another thing I did this week, since this ties into my my video of my new art supplies I just got. Since I just bought a few new I love trying out little black markers. So I just bought a few new ones. Where are they? A Pentel pigment pen, a Pilot Bravo, and a Blick pigment ink pen. Those were 3 of the new ones I got. So I've finally decided to swatch all of my black pens. So this is, you can see there are little drawings done with each type of pen. And the ones with the yellow outlines smear when you put alcohol markers over them. That's important to know. So that's why it's important to know if I'm going to draw something in little black marker, that if I color it with alcohol markers, if it'll smear or not. You don't want to use the ones with alcohol. So anything that's got a yellow box around it isn't getting used with Copics. Oh, except Pigma brush. Looks like it needs a yellow box around it, but it doesn't have it. Look at that. He got smearing in his face. I got a yellow box, that one. Because if you're making something like this, if this is watercolor, I believe. But if you were to do this with marker, you wouldn't want that blank ink to smear. I think she did this with marker, but I'm not 100% sure. That could be a dip pen. Might be a dip pen. Let's see. Usually it reflects light. I think this might be a dip pen. It reflects light differently because the dip pen ink sits on the surface more than a marker. But, and also like most markers can stand up to water, but usually if you were to watercolor something, you do the marker second. So that's another tip for you artists out there who like little black markers. Make yourself up a swatch. I always swatch everything. Any new supplies I get, I swatch. Sometimes the swatches end up being my best artwork with that particular tool. I'm like, I make something with it. I'm like, the swatch is better. A lot of my watercolor swatches look better than my watercolors. Abstract art. And speaking of Harvey, that's kind of what made me want to go back and reread these issues. Because I want to reread the Harvey one. Mm-hmm. Because that's where I learned everything I know about Harvey. I never knew anything about Harvey. And then I got it in an issue of Back Issue. And it was one of those. Have you ever noticed when you buy a magazine about comics, you get most excited about the stuff you already know? Like, ooh, Jim Starlin's Warlock. I love Jim Starlin's Warlock. Ooh, I'm going to love this issue.
Yeah.
And I read this notice I didn't even mention much that I read the Warlock article, but it was like the history of Warlock. It's not exactly the most. I found it interesting because it gave me the plot lines of 70s Warlock, which I know and like. So I enjoyed reading it, but there's not much to discuss because it was kind of like a book report about the plot. So like I said, I used to get this on the regular too back in 2009, 10, and 11. So I have all those issues. And I occasionally, like that all Harvey issue, I was like, Harvey. I don't know anything about Harvey. What do I want to read about? And then I read it and I found it fascinating because I didn't know anything about Harvey. And there were all these people working in comics for 10 years, 15 years who I'd never heard of because they worked on Harvey. And it was just a great, great read. If you ever want to read more interesting than the comics. Might not want to read any Harvey comics, but reading about Harvey comics was cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, I would be interested in watching a TV series about the early years of Archie comic or better of MLJ comics.
Yeah.
And how John Goldwater was in with the Mafia.
Uh-huh.
Because they all were.
What? That just reminded me. Whatever happened to that guy who was doing a documentary on the history of Charlton comics?
I don't remember.
Must be 5 years ago now. I used to see him pop up in Facebook or whatever, and he would always be talking about the history of Charlton comics and how he was making a documentary on it, and he was gathering information and he was gathering stuff. But I just realized I haven't run into it in years now. I don't know if it ever got made, but he really was working on the history of Charlton comics, and I think he may have had some connection with them too.
All right, so new comprehensive history of Charlton comics. Due. Okay, so yeah, there's a Charlton companion from Tomorrow's.
Yeah, that's not it. He specifically said a documentary. I don't even know if there was a book that was going with it, but I wonder what happened to that guy.
Okay, so there's an 18. No, that's Strange Brain Parts.
Huh.
Strange Brain Parts did an 18-minute video. Jerk Comic did a one and a half hour video about Steve Ditko, Charlton, and Watchman. Fizz Pop video. Charlton Comics, the movie. The movie brings new headlines. Yeah, this thing hasn't had any updates since 2019.
2019?
Wait, but there's an IMDb page about it.
It didn't make it through COVID.
Okay, so there's an IMDb page saying Charlton Comics, the movie, was a documentary that came out in 2017.
Oh, it was out?
Yeah.
I don't remember it being out. It was that long ago I heard about it? Wow, time flies. Is there anywhere you can see it? Does it exist?
The Indiegogo page is still there.
Comic Crack says, very strange. The website dates 2019 looking for money, but the IMD says 2017. Something fishy.
Yeah, and the Indiegogo campaign is showing us closed, achieving 16% of flexible goal. Got 36.
What year was the Indiegogo campaign?
Let's see, when was the last date? No, yeah, it's closed, so I can see the date. The goal was $22,000, and they only got $3,700.
I guess that's why it never got made, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't. Charlton. It just says Charlton movie. Okay. 2 campaigns. Someone in Hartford, Connecticut. Beautiful profile with that thing. 2 campaigns for this profile campaigns.
That'll get things not made.
Wait, there's a phase 2, which is also closed, and yeah, you got $240. Yeah, I don't think it got made at all.
Huh. Yeah, because I remember hearing from that guy, like he would just show up and he had a lot of knowledge about Charlton that he was dropping on us. But I guess, Not enough people cared to fund an Indiegogo.
Mhm.
I don't even remember seeing an Indiegogo. I've never used Indiegogo. So I guess it was never made. Oh well. Such is life. Such it is with creative projects.
Yeah. You know, some these things that are niche, they have a hard time.
Yeah, that's really niche.
Yeah. In there's this forum about motorsport history fans, and I've seen a guy complain that there's no point in me doing a video, me doing a book about Formula Ford or something, because the book publishers only care about biographies of current NASCAR drivers, and that's if they care about motorsports at all. So doing something about motorsports in the 1920s or 30s, or about a lower category, nobody's interested. And those types of books in particular, they have a problem because they have to pay royalties to the photo,
Yeah.
for the photographs, and then you have to sell. Then the book has to be 100, 200 pages, but you have to charge $90 for it
Mm-hmm.
because of the photos.
Right.
And you only and you sell all over the world, but you only print 1,200.
Think of how niche a history of Charlton
Yeah,
documentary is. It's like,
yeah, it's
woo.
niche. Well, you might as well do what Strange Brain Parts does, and do a 19-minute video, and that's it.
Yeah. Huh. I think he wanted to go more in depth.
Yeah, I suppose. But then the best way to do it is you do the research anyway, and well, people don't really like episodes. But
I don't think there's any way. If you're doing it for any kind of money or attention, you're not gonna
yeah, no, you're not. If you want to do a documentary about Charlton Comics, do the documentary about Charlton
Right.
Comics. Put it on YouTube, and 50 people will watch it. There.
Yep, that's what's gonna happen. Because wow.
But I mean, what are you gonna do? Try to put it on the commercial circuit?
Who knows?
Are any theaters going to show a matinee with a documentary about a forgotten, extinct comic book company?
With characters that nobody cares about, if they have.
Yeah, and you can't even market it as the characters who inspired Watchmen, because you'll get sued by Warner.
Hold on, was Peacemaker Charlton?
Yeah.
He might be the only one who anybody knows about right now, because he had that TV show and showed up in the movie.
Right.
So you'd have to tie Peacemaker into it somehow. Well, wait, but that Peacemaker came out after 2019, right?
Right.
So he didn't even have that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, that's a tough sell. That is a super tough sell. Well, we should wrap it up for the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Get some confetti.
Yes.
Get some balloons. I did balloons at the Senate meeting. My school Senate had a meeting. At the end, I gave them balloons. People were like, ooh.
Ooh, balloons.
Balloons.
But the lasers are what impresses them.
Dun dun dun.
And the rain.
Let's see. The rain is. They changed the rain a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, we have double thumbs down. We need the rain. Come on. There we go. See, so the first time it puts a cloud over your head. Then the next time I did it, it wouldn't give me the cloud. It was just rain. Oh no, it gave me the cloud again.
But it only rains on you. It used to rain in the
rain and thunder everywhere.
Yeah.
Wonder if we can. They put any new ones in? I don't think so. Oh well. Was there one for a single? No. We'll end with the balloons.
Yep.
Everybody out there, have a good night.
Mhm.
And we'll catch you next time
Read
with
John Sable
Wilson and
Freelance.
maybe Chris.
Yeah. And read John Sable Freelance.
Yeah.